afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In our series of interviews with our speakers from APATS, I have the pleasure today to introduce you to Dr. Maneerat Tianchai, who is a lecturer of aviation at the University of Southern Queensland. Her research interests include aviation safety, human factors, pilot resilience, with a focus on training and performance in aviation settings. She is an early career researcher and a HDR supervisor with experience in academic and industry-related research projects. As I said, when I was reading your title of the presentation, it started with "Startle has no checklist." What does that mean in practice, and why does it matter for pilot training today?
So let's say that when something unexpected happens in the cockpit, there is not always a checklist that you can immediately rely on. You might be dealing with multiple crews at once, time pressure, or incomplete information. What matters in those moments is not just the technical knowledge, but it's actually how quickly you adapt your thinking and focus on the right action. In my research, I actually found that some pilots are able to stay calm and adjust quickly, while others feel more overwhelmed under the same condition. So the key difference comes down to two things, with our first, how flexible their thinking is, and second, whether they focus on what needs to be done next, rather than getting stuck in the stress of the situation. That is why this matters for the training today. So rather than trying to be very good at teaching procedure, we now just try to train pilot to think and adapt into the situation when it doesn't match the script.
Now, you found that cognitive flexibility and task-focused coping are skills that can be developed. They're not just innate traits. So what is the evidence for that? And what does it mean for how we design CBTA programs?
Oh, this is a very interesting question because actually what I found in my research, I actually tried to compare the group of airline pilots with aviation students, and I found very clear patterns out of these two groups. Pretty much airline pilots actually score higher in both flexible thinking and task-focused coping, and they also reported lower stress. What that tells us is that these traits are not a big trait. They actually improve with experience, which means they can be trained deliberately. So for the competency-based training and assessment, this is important. It means that we shouldn't only assess on the technical performance only, but we can also develop and observe on how pilots actually prioritize, adapt, and cope under stress. And this is pretty much the real world operational competencies. Let's say that it is pretty good news because we don't actually require any additional courses or extra training time. We can actually build this into the training that we already do.
We are looking, and you have developed apparently two specific training tools, switch thinking drills and the three-step action plan. Can you give us a quick, concrete example of either one would look at inside the simulator session?
So let's say that the first one that I just mentioned is just the what I call it as the switch thinking drill. Let's say that when the crew is flying on a stable approach and everything appears to be very stable, and at that moment, the instructor just try to introduce a small change, maybe it a new heading from the air traffic control, or maybe a change in automation mode. The goal of this is not just trying to make it more complicated, but to get the crew to notice the change early and also adjust their plan smoothly. And in the second one, the second tool that you just mentioned before too, I call it as the three-step action plan. So before the high workload phase, the pilot actually try to quickly frame the situation. What is the problem? What action will be the first one and what comes next? These are very small changes in the training, but they actually help pilots to just stay focused and also avoid getting overloaded with their work.
That is interesting. That's a good thing. That I think it's very important to try to reduce the stress level in a cockpit at any point. Last question. For a head of training who wants to implement these approaches, what is the single most important thing to get right from day one? What is the thing that, if you don't do this, it's not going to work?
The most important things for this strategy, pretty much just try to keep everything simple. Make it simple and also integrate it into the what you already do in the training. So you don't need to redesign any training program at all. Maybe just start by adding small but realistic variations in the simulator training, and then try to encourage pilot to actually verbalize their thinking during their debrief. So what matters is the consistency. If the instructor actually regularly reinforce flexible thinking and also the task focused action, it actually help pilot to start to build those habits in their training. Then over time, that is what improve how they actually respond under pressure, not just about theory, but repeated and practical exposure during
I'm
training.
looking forward to seeing the whole presentation, and I'm sure the audience is as well. So I hope to see you soon in Bangkok. Thank you very much for your time now. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, and I will see you in Bangkok.